امروز ترامپ با چرخش 180 درجه‌ای توی مواضعش روبرو بود و عکس روزهای قبل که گفته بود ما دنبال توافق هستیم و اینکه میخوایم بشینیم پای میز مذاکره، اما امروز حرفش رو نقض کرده بود. این ویدیوی صحبتاش رو به صورت کامل با زیرنویس فارسی اختصاصی ببینید.
How's it going?
It's going well. Did everybody have a good time?
Yeah.
Did you have a good time?
How about you? I did. I always have a good time.
You just posted right before we took off that you're not leaving because of a ceasefire. Why are you? Can you elaborate?
Looking at better than ceasefire. We're not looking for a ceasefire. I didn't say I was looking for a ceasefire. That was Emmanuel, nice guy, but he doesn't get it right too often. But we're not looking. We're looking for better than a ceasefire.
That's just you're looking to get into this more. You're not going to involve the U.S. in this conflict stage. You're going to do anything more for Israel right now?
Doing pretty well. Right now, we're doing pretty well. Remember, Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon. It's very simple. We don't have to go too deep into it. They just can't have a nuclear weapon.
What was the thinking on the call for Iran to evacuate? Is there a threat or is there incoming? What was the thinking on the whole evacuation?
I want people to be safe. And that's always possible. A thing like that could happen. I just want people to be safe.
Is there any concern about U.S. troops or assets in the region at all today?
Great people that know how to protect themselves.
And when you say better, what's
we'll come down so hard if they do anything to our people. We'll come down so hard that the gloves are off so beautifully. Now, I think they know not to touch our troops.
Are you sending the vice?
We're not troops.
when you say
Do you
better,
plan to send the vice president and Steve Witkoff? There's reports that you want to send the vice president and Steve Witkoff to meet with the Iranians and have discussions. Is that something you're considering?
Not sure yet. I may. Depends on what happens when I get back.
what specifically is better than a ceasefire? What are you looking for here?
And then a real end, not a ceasefire. And then
So something that will be permanent.
or giving up entirely.
Is
That's
that-
okay too.
Are you close there? Are you possible? Is that possible in the next 24
Why not? Certainly possible. Complete give up. That's possible. You know.
Has the chairman of the Joint Chiefs and the Secretary of Defense drawn up plans for you if Iran were to attack U.S. bases or do any damage to U.S. bases?
Just can't do it.
Can I ask you, because there's been some skepticism, is there any guarantee that if the U.S. did get involved militarily, that a U.S. bomb could destroy Iran's nuclear program and facilities?
Everything for anything in our life, you know that. Look at you, right? There's no guarantee. But you're saying a guarantee on what?
Do you think if the U.S. got involved militarily, it would actually wipe out Iran's nuclear program? Or where's your assessment of that?
I hope their program's going to be wiped out long before that. But they're not going to have a nuclear weapon.
What do you have any reason to believe the Israelis are going to slow down, or are they going to hit the accelerator right now?
We're going to see. You're going to find out over the next 2 days. You're going to find out.
Has the gang of eight
Nobody's slowed up so far.
has the gang of eight been notified about what's coming in the next couple days?
Well, we'll be talking to them.
What can you do?
It's not necessary.
What can you do in Washington that you couldn't do in Canada?
Just be a little bit, I think, more well-versed. Not having to use telephones so much, because I don't believe in telephones. Because people like you listen to it, you know. So, being on the scene is much better. And we did everything I had to do on the G7. We had a good G7. We signed a deal with the European Union, phase one of a deal, but we signed a deal with the UK. And the UK is really great. We're very far down the line with a lot of deals. I mean, look, we're actually finished with every deal if you really think about it, because all I have to do is say, this is what you're going to pay.
Did
But
Secretary
it's nice to be nice.
Did Secretary Bessent stay behind as your representative?
Yeah, he did.
Okay. Anybody else?
Yeah, a couple of years.
Can I ask you where...
Who else has a question other than CNN fake news?
President,
See the Russian
Mr. President, you talking to the European Union? Can you tell us what the status is on talks on those you signed with
We're
the UK
talking, but
today?
I don't feel that they're offering a fair deal yet. They've been very tough over the years. You look at European Union, they formed in order to hurt the United States on trade. And we're either going to make a good deal or they'll just pay whatever we say then.
What about the Japanese? Sir, you met briefly with Prime Minister.
We had a great conversation. I thought he was terrific, actually. You know, I was very friendly with Shinzo Abe, Prime Minister. He was a great man. But I think he's going to do a very good job.
Do you think you have a chance of a deal there?
There's a chance. They're tough. The Japanese are tough. But ultimately, you have to understand, we're just going to send a letter and say, this is what you're going to pay. Otherwise, you don't have to do business with us. But there's a chance.
They want changes to the auto tariffs as well. Is that on the table?
We'll see what happens.
All right.
Now,
Anything else?
Yeah, this drone attack in Kyiv. What's your response to that? It looks like 14.
When was that?
A drone attack, Russian drone attack in Kyiv.
When?
Very recently. Just now.
Oh.
Civilians in apartment building.
I mean, as I'm walking back to see you, that's what it took place.
Something like that.
Sounds like it. I'll have to look at it.
Are you going to
give-
on the Middle East? What changed about that convinced you to sign on to the G7 statement?
Well, I haven't seen the statement yet. But I authorized them to say certain things, and I don't know whether or not they said them correctly. But I think they probably did. We had a good meeting. I think that Canadian representatives were very good. He did a very good job.
How are the
Tony did a very good job.
How was your meeting with him? How were the trade talks looking with the Canadians?
I think it was good. I think we had a lot of good talks with a lot of people.
You said he's looking for something more complex. Can you tell me what you mean by
Well,
that?
they get too complex on the deals and they never get done. And we need speed. You know, we're dealing with, really, if you think about it, probably 175 countries. And most of them are going to just be sent a letter saying, it'll be an honor to trade with you, and here's what you're going to have to pay to do it. We're making a lot of money. You know, we took in $88 billion in tariffs. And I was called by Congress about 2 nights ago saying, we don't understand, the numbers are so far off. And I said, is that good or bad? He said, well, we're taking in so much more income than we thought. We've never seen anything like this. What is it? I said, check the tariff column. And it's about $88 billion that they've never seen before. And that's nothing compared to what it's going to
You've
be.
got other tariffs coming down the pipe here.
I have a lot of them, yeah.
What's the timing on those things like lumber, copper, pharmaceutical drugs?
We're going to be doing pharmaceuticals very soon. That's going to bring all the companies back into America.
All of them are focusing on.
It's going to bring most of them back in, at least partially back in. You know, they left us because we had presidents that didn't know what the hell they were doing. We should have never lost our car business. We lost 52% of our car business over the years. Should have never lost it. All they had to do is say, if you make a car, you're going to leave us, you're going to make a car, you're going to pay a 25, 30% tariff, and they would have never left. Nobody said that to anybody until I came home.
Homeland Security is saying that ICE is going to start enforcing in hotels and farms again. It's kind of a change of course from last week.
We're going to look everywhere, but I think the biggest problem is the inner cities. You're looking everywhere. Look, what they let into this country, what Biden let in, or allowed to, I don't think he knew what the hell he was doing, frankly, but whoever worked for him, what they let into this country, we're never going to forget it. They let prisoners in, they let gang members in, drug dealers in, the mentally insane into our country. No, we're going to get them out. There are far more in the inner cities, Democrat-run cities, sadly. I mean, I'm just giving you, but there's far more in there than you have on farm somewhere.
So no one's getting exemptions anymore. Everyone is.
Well, everyone's being looked at, but the bigger problem is the cities right now. That's where, and that tends to be where the really bad ones are. The murderers, you know, they've let in 11,888 murderers, people that killed people. Biden allowed that to happen. So the Democrats allowed it. Biden didn't know he was even around. You know.
Question on your Senate confirmations. With all the military actions, there are only 3 of your 6 sub-cabinet members at the Defense
Yeah,
Department.
I'd like to see the nominations go faster. The Democrats hold up our nominations.
Are you talking to Senator
Yeah, I
Thune
will.
about that?
John Thune's doing a very good job. You know, I've got a lot of people in, but he's doing a very good job.
Have you had a
The
chance-
Democrats, if we had George Washington up for approval, the Democrats would take maximum time, every hour, every minute, to delay him as long as possible. If we had a combination of Abraham Lincoln and George Washington, they would go max. It's called max time.
So you've always said that you don't believe Iran should be able to have a nuclear weapon, but how close do you personally think that they were to getting one? Because Tulsi Gabbard testified in March that the intelligence community said Iran wasn't building a nuclear weapon.
I don't care what she said. I think they were very close to having it.
I got us one on. You were at this beautiful scene for the meeting, and you said a lot about acquiring Canada as a state. Did anybody talk to you about that? And where
I think it's a much better deal from Canada, but you know, it's up to them. They're going to have to pay a lot of tariffs and things. They're going to have to pay a lot of money for the dome, for the Iron Dome. They want to be a part of it.
Did you talk
We
about
may
that?
make a separate deal on that, by the way.
On the dome?
We discussed that, yeah, with the dome. That may
Take
be
it
a
off.
separate deal. They want to be at $71 billion. They're going to pay.
There could be a dome thing separate from the
They'll
tariff.
be in the dome. Yeah, they'll be under the dome.
And were you open to negotiating with the Iranians right now, or do you want to wait?
I don't know. I've been negotiating. I told them to do the deal. They should have done the deal. Their cities have been blown to pieces. They've lost a lot of people. They should have done the deal. I told them do the deal. So I don't know. I'm not too much in a mood to negotiate now.
Do you think you'll be in the Situation Room tomorrow at any point?
Yeah. Tomorrow morning, girl, while you're sleeping. Goodbye, everybody.
Why did you tell people to evacuate Tehran? You know, you posted.
Yeah, I think it's safer.
Are you
There's a lot of bad things happening there. No, I think it's safer for them to evacuate.
On Minnesota, there were a lot of horrific details that came out today about the suspect who's been charged there. Have you called the governor yet or been able to speak to any of them?
I don't really call him. He appointed this guy to a position. I think the governor of Minnesota is so whacked out. I'm not calling. Why would I call him? I could call him and say, hi, how you doing? The guy doesn't have a clue. He's a mess. So, you know, I could be nice and call him, but why waste time?
On the big beautiful bill, sir, or can you talk about what the
We're
Senate...
doing well with the big,
How's it looking in the Senate? They
great,
proposed some
big,
change.
beautiful bill.
Are
Right?
you okay with it, James?
I hear so far it's going well.
Are you going to stand?
Look, if it doesn't get approved, 68% tax increase, and I think the Democrats would have to, you know, they'd be, because we won't get Democrat support. Think of it. We're giving the biggest tax cut in history. Instead, you have the biggest tax increase in history. 68%.
Are you going to extend the TikTok deadline again? It's coming up.
Probably, yeah. Probably have to get China approval. I think we'll get
Do you
it.
have the legal basis?
I think President Xi will ultimately approve it.
And you have the legal basis to do that?
Yeah. Yeah, we do.
Two more on Iran. Is there any sign that North Korea is getting more involved in helping Iran, or is Russia getting more involved in the?
I haven't seen it. I don't think anybody wants to get involved. It's a mess.
What about American citizens, U.S. citizens who are trying to leave the area with the airport shut down, Ben Gurion shut
We're
down?
doing the best we can. We're working on that. We're doing the best we can. Thank you, everybody, very much. Have a good time.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Thanks, Caroline.
Caroline.
Well, we have our cameras following President Trump's every move in Canada as he moves to the G7 summit for the year. Here is the president right now speaking to reporters with Prime Minister Mark Carney at his side.
See what we're going to come out with something, hopefully.
Do you think a deal is achievable within days, within weeks? Is there that kind of runway?
Yeah, it's achievable. Both parties have to agree. Yeah, sure.
Mr. President, have you heard any signals or seen any messages from intermediaries that Iran wishes to de-escalate the conflict?
Yeah,
What have you heard? What have you heard from the Iranians?
they'd like to talk, but they should have done that before. I had 60 days, and they had 60 days, and on the 61st day, I said, we don't have a deal. They have to make a deal, and it's painful for both parties, but I'd say Iran is not winning this war, and they should talk, and they should talk immediately before it's too late.
And what would you say, in your opinion, what would it take for the U.S. to get involved in this conflict militarily?
I don't want to talk about that. We'll
As
see.
you mentioned Putin, do you think that he should have a seat at the G7 today, that it should be the G8?
I'm not saying he should at this point, because too much water's gone over the dam, maybe. But it was a big mistake. Obama didn't want him, and the head of your country, the proud head of your country, didn't want him. This was a big mistake. You wouldn't have that war. You know, you have your enemy at the table. Even I don't even consider him. He wasn't really an enemy at that time. There was no concept. If I were president, this war would have never happened. But likewise, if he were a member of what was called the G8 at that time, it was always the G8, you wouldn't have a war right now.
Why not
What
China?
intelligence support are you providing Israel?
We've always supported Israel. We have for a long period of time, strongly. And Israel's doing very well right now.
Why not have China at the G8? Why not have China here, the biggest economy in the world after the United States?
Well, it's not a bad idea. I don't mind that. If somebody wants to suggest China coming in, I think we suggest. But you want to have people that you can talk to. You know, they don't talk to. Putin speaks to me. He doesn't speak to anybody else. He doesn't want to talk because he was very insulted when he got thrown out of the G8. As I would be, as you would be, as anybody would be. He was very insulted. And, I mean, he was thrown out by Trudeau, who convinced one or two people, along with Obama. He was thrown out, and he's not a happy person about it, I can tell you that. He basically doesn't even speak to the people that throw him out, and I agree with him. Go ahead.
On immigration, why are you ordering ICE to target Democratic inner cities? What's behind that?
I don't know what you're saying.
You did a post last night where you said you want ICE to really target Democrats.
Yeah, I want them to focus on the cities because the cities are where you really have what's called sanctuary cities, and that's where the people are. I look at New York, I look at Chicago. I mean, you got a really bad governor in Chicago and a bad mayor, but the governor's probably the worst in the country, Pritzker. But I look at how that city has been overrun by criminals, and you know, New York and L.A., look at L.A. L.A., those people weren't from L.A., they weren't from California, most of those people, many of those people. And yeah, that's a focus. Biden allowed 21 million people to come into our country. Of that, vast numbers of those people were murderers, killers, people from gangs, people from jails. They emptied their jails out into the U.S. Most of those people are in the cities, all blue cities, all Democrat-run cities, and they think they're going to use them to vote. It's not going to happen.
It would take 2 weeks to decide if
Thank you. If you don't mind, just I'm going to exercise my role, if you will, as G7 chair, since we have a few more minutes with the president and his team, and then we actually have to start the meeting to address some of these big issues. So, alors merci beaucoup pour vos questions et puis. Thank you.
That's it. That's it. Thank you very much. Out. So, guys, out.
All right, you heard it. Out you go. The press being ushered out with just a few remarks there, but listening to all of it, CBS News White House correspondent Natalie Brand. Natalie, I'm struck that Iran seemed to be what we heard at the very top of that. And it was very striking to me that President Trump, with Prime Minister Carney standing next to him, did not want to really talk about U.S. involvement. This, as we know, that Israel needs our bunker buster bombs if they're to go deep in Iran to really take out those nuclear facilities.
Yeah, Reed, in this short question and answer period that we heard, the president was asked about some of the new reporting, including the reporting by the Wall Street Journal, that Iran is sending signals or messages, perhaps through intermediaries, that they want to de-escalate. The president was asked about that, and he said, yes, they would like to talk. They should have come to the table and talk. And he also said they are not winning this war, but again, signaling that he wants them to come back to the negotiating table. Then someone also asked what would it take for the United States to get involved, and he said he didn't want to talk about that. That does come after a weekend social media post in which he said that if Iran were to strike, a U.S. asset, that they would be met with force unlike they've seen before. We also know from CBS News reporting and Olivia Gazas' reporting that the State Department, through a cable, has been sending the message to embassies to really emphasize the point point that the U.S. was not directly involved in the Israeli strike on Iranian targets, which started this conflict late Thursday night into Friday morning. So Iran and Israel certainly hanging over the G7 summit when, ordinarily trade would probably be at the top of the agenda with the president's tariffs on all of these key trading partners. Now, this pool spray, when reporters were allowed into the room, it was quite brief because it's Canada's Prime Minister Mark Carney who's really controlling the timing of this as the host country. But in very brief remarks, President Trump also noted that this used to be the G8 and that it was President Obama and Canada's former Prime Minister Trudeau that made the decision to kick out Russia following Russia's annexation of Crimea. The president making the point that in his mind that was the wrong move and that there wouldn't be a war if that would have happened. That if that wouldn't have happened, then again is President Trump's claim. Of course, the conflict, the war, Russia's war on Ukraine, another big topic at this summit this week.
All right, and really kind of got a sense of where President Trump is on China. When he was asked about China not being at the table, he really sort of said, look, we're having people who will talk to us and have conversations. That may speak a lot as we see this 90-day tariff extension continue to play out. Expires next month. Natalie Brand, thank you so much for talking to us there from the White House lawn.
مرسی با ما همراه بودید. امیدوارم که ویدیو براتون جالب باشه. نظرتون مثل همیشه محترم و برامون به شدت مهمه. حتما داخل کامنت ها بنویسید. کانال رو حتما سابسکرایب کنید.